Okay, so we have the lovely Binder. I'm actually doing this different. Usually, the guest would come in, but we're going to start just in the car. So, yeah, Binder.
Hi.
Let's talk about hello. We've already spoke before this, so let's talk about just at the very beginning. Like, so when did your upbringing actually? Let's start
Okay.
about that. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Well, first of all, cheers.
Cheers.
We've got some lovely Indian chai going on here. Indian tea is a real ritual for me. I love sharing my culture, so this is just me, one way of me sharing my culture. So Sarah's drinking some spiced tea. It's got some herbs and spices in. Yeah, and it's the method of making it, so it's very homely.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. So yes, thank you for inviting me, Sarah. My name's Binder Tahani. I was born in England to Indian parents that moved over in the 70s. Had a very culturally rich upbringing, but always navigating two cultures. So it was quite a strict upbringing actually. So working parents in England. My father was a shopkeeper. We had a business, an operations, and my mum was a machinist at a factory. So she used to make lingerie actually for Marks and Spencer's.
Really?
So that's
right.
That's a funny story because she was a machinist, and there'd be odds and ends and spare lingerie.
Right.
So as a 10-12-year-old, everybody's underwear would be bought, but mine would be made, and it would be the most luxurious silks and satins. But I was so embarrassed of it because, and again, working parents, they didn't have the money, to splash out. So if you can make it yourself, why not? So yes, I had the most luxurious underwear as a child, which is quite funny. But yes, my mum was a machinist and grew up in Bradford. They say it takes a village to raise children, but I think that really, really applied to me because I had a very rich upbringing because of the extended family that I grew up in. So my father was one of 4 siblings. So there's 3 brothers, 1 sister.
Right.
The brothers lived in Bradford, the sister in Nottingham. So my auntie Nina, who I'm very close to, she's only how many years? Maybe 12 years older than me. So she she was like an older sister to me all my life, and still is. We're very close. Very similar actually as well. So grew up in England. Again, very, very rich with cousins all around us. So whilst we were never allowed to have sleepovers, but because we had lots of cousins, we never felt the need that we were missing out on the sleepovers. But I grew up in Bradford, and my parents, whilst working class, I grew up and my father wanted me to go to a private school because, education was very important to him, but not my brothers. So sorry boys. I went to a really quaint Victorian private school. And whilst my parents couldn't quite afford it, they still found the means to stretch, so that my dad instilled that education is really important, especially for his girl. So I was very precious, and I really thank my dad for instilling that self-belief in me at a young age. But because my parents were paying for my education, there was pressure on me to perform and to make sure that education was important, and I did well at school. Because I was very conscious that my parents didn't always have the same money that my peers in the class had.
Right.
So, for me to make up was to study hard. And, I did excel in my studies, so much so that whenever I was at school, I did my GCSEs at 15.
Right.
And then my head teacher's like, right, let's do our A-levels in a year. So I actually did my A-levels at the age of 16.
No way.
And I did, and then the teacher's like, well, even if you don't get into uni, we'll apply the following year. So I applied for university, and I got into university at 16. So
you got into university at 16?
At 16.
Wow,
so
smart.
I went to university at 16. I didn't tell anybody because I was very embarrassed. But because, again, from strict Indian parents, they didn't want me to study away. They couldn't let the daughters study away. It was like you had to, in the confines of where they can keep an eye on me, that I'm not being waylaid by the Western culture, you know, out drinking, you know, smoking. But I think in my heart I was always a good girl.
Yeah.
But I think my Indian upbringing and my mum's spiritual, religious presence really had a big impact on just how I grew up. So I'm from a Sikh background. So Sikhism, have you heard of Sikhism?
No, haven't. No.
So Sikhism is a religion that was founded in the 15th century by Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and he basically renounced some of the practices that were happening at the time. It's a faith that's based on honest and moral living, and believing that there's a divine entity in everything and everyone around us.
Okay.
So it's based on 3 basic concepts of Nam Japna, which means meditation, saying the Lord's name. Vandke Shakna means sharing what we have, giving selfless service and contributing positively to society. And Kirat Karna is again an honest living. So having a righteous way of life whilst being a positive contributor to society. So it's a beautiful religion. You know, it believes in equality and justice. Equality, so that there's no discrimination between men, women. The caste system was obviously very prevalent, so they, you know, wanted to shun that. Justice, that, you know, you uphold and protect the weak and make sure everyone gets justice in this world. And the selfless service. So, you know, even in Gurdwara, which is the religious place of worship, you know, the free kitchen is where anyone can go. Doesn't matter what caste, creed, race, nationality you are, you can go to any Gurdwara in the world and they serve free food to you. So, you know, seva is a huge concept in Sikhism, which is selfless service. So it's a beautiful religion, you know, and Sikhs are, you know, those that practice, they are recognised by the 5 Ks. So the first K being Gesh, which is the long hair. So the men and the women both have long hair, and the men would wear the turbans to keep the hair, and also women as well. Gara, which would be the silver bangle, which represents unity of God. And Ganga is a small comb in your long hair, representing cleanliness, both of your mind, body, and your soul, thoughts, keeping just cleanliness. Kashera is wearing cotton undergarments, representing modesty in everything that you do. And Kirpan, which is a ceremonial dagger that one would wear, but it's basically a symbol to protect the weak and ensure justice is being done. So it's beautiful. So it's very, very symbolic, you know.
Did you grow up with that then?
I did.
Yeah.
I grew up with that. So my mum was a hugely religious, and she meditated whenever she would have, every day she would have meditated, and she instilled meditation into us as a child. So even as a 3-4-year-old, I would do the Sikh prayers at night time. I didn't know why. It was like almost a ritual, and just you do it out of fear or because your mum tells you. But, you know, as I grew up, it became a habit. But I never knew how it was going to serve me for the rest of my life, because my mum always explained it that this is like building credit in your bank accounts. Every moment that you meditate in life is building a credit in your future bank account. And I never understood what that meant, but now, obviously older and having had reasons and needs to learn about mental well-being, health, neuroplasticity, all of that, you know, it's scientifically proven that meditation helps you to be emotionally resilient. So we don't know what's going to happen in our lives, but if we have a practice that that includes meditation, is going to help you become emotionally resilient. So, and I know it served me in my life, because we don't know what's happening and everybody's got a story to tell. So, and I still meditate. I do it every day, and I do it with my girls as well. Amazing. So we sit and we do meditation, and meditation doesn't have to be religious. It can be listening to soulful music, it can be listening to water sounds. It's about stilling your mind and grounding yourself and just letting all the mud settle. It's like a glass of water, and you've got to put a spoon of sand or mud, and you keep stirring it, and you're so busy, it's going to keep stirring. But if you just stop stirring the water, you're going to let it all settle down. So all the thoughts, all the murkiness, or the emotions that we feel, we give it time we give it time and space. So we're honouring whatever it is that we're feeling. You know, meditation, you think, oh, you need to empty the mind.
But
it's not only about emptying the mind, because we're like monkeys. Our minds are like monkeys. We're constantly thinking about what we're doing, what we're cooking. I think busy mums especially, working mums, busy mums, single parents, you know, it's really difficult, but it's just giving yourself that time. So
So where did you go from there then? Did you move to Northern Ireland?
So I did my university in Bradford, but because I was at home, I didn't really experience what university life was like. So I stepped out of my comfort zone at 17, and I said to my dad, I have an opportunity to go to Canada to study. So I was like, right, I'm off to do an exchange program in Canada. And I was absolutely petrified. I was so scared. But then I ventured out of my comfort zone, went to Canada, to Ottawa at Carleton University, and did part of my degree out there, and it was the best decision I ever made, because it really did. I needed to get to discover myself and who I was, but I went out there, made the most awesome friends, had the most amazing experiences. And I think in my mind and heart, I am a bit of a free spirit. I have a travel, but I love exploring places. I love making new friends. I love experiences. So I went.
What did you study?
I did my degree in business and management studies, so it was a 4-year degree. So I did the first year in Bradford, then I went to Canada to study the second year. The third year was in industry, so I started my career as HR. I did 1 year in industry, and then I moved on to my final year at Bradford University. But because I was like 20 having a 4-year degree, I was like ahead of everyone else. So I was like, I want to go back to Canada and study. And work and travel. So I went back to Canada, and I lived out there, worked for Oracle, the database company, had the most amazing time, explored all of Canada, and made the most awesome friends. So we're going, I'm taking the girls over to do a road trip with them shortly, so I'm looking forward to that, and they'll get to see what Mummy was like before.
Yes, you can show them everything.
Just all my friends, and so that's going to be exciting. So then I came back after my stint in Canada, and I still didn't know what I wanted to do, so then I did a master's in advertising and marketing. I was still only 21 at the time, so then I did a degree.
You had so much life.
I was very lucky, and I'm very grateful for the opportunities that I've had. And I think, you know, it's one thing being offered an opportunity, but it's another taking action on it. I think that's sometimes, you know, whereas I think from a young age, I always knew that we live once, and we might not get a chance to do it again. So grab life by both hands and just live. And I know that now more than ever. So then I did my year in at Leeds University doing advertising, like yourself, advertising and marketing. And I still didn't know what I wanted to do, but I got into recruitment sales after graduating, and I really didn't like that. It was cutthroat and a little bit unethical. So I was like, right, this isn't for me, but the sales experience I got and the training was phenomenal. And then that was in Manchester. Then I thought, you know what, I want to go back to Bradford. And by this time I'd started my my artistic journey. So so I was 20, and then I started henna art. So I've got a demonstration here.
I know, it's so beautiful.
So henna's been part of my life, most of my life actually, and it's been a very sacred practice for me, another way for me to meditate. And I never knew the power that henna had on my own mental health, well-being, until now that I'm studying it, because I'm studying art therapy and mindfulness at the moment. So I was like, wow, it's really, really been amazing in having a grounded practice because I would do henna for brides. So I started to do, so I had a corporate.
Then, did you?
So back then, so I started my henna journey, and then the brides were saying, well, you do henna, but can you do hair and makeup? So I was like, I can, but I need to go qualify. So then I went to London and qualified as a hair and makeup artist. So then I started to do just Asian brides alongside my corporate job. So I've been wearing many hats.
I was going to say, like, I feel like you've been in every field.
I just feel,
and I love that. It's just so rich.
I think it's just really honouring life and living life and making the most of every moment. And so then I was doing recruitment. I was doing my hair and makeup and henna. Obviously didn't have commitment of family, so I could do it. And then I didn't like the recruitment, so then I came back home and I thought I want to spend some time with my parents, and I got a job with this company that designed, develops and distributed garments for high street retailers. So it was an agency, and what they did, they worked with the buying offices in UK, so the likes of Primark, Asda, Ethel Austin's, mid-range, not your higher end range. And I worked in children's wear, so I was a merchandiser, and I worked for that company for 1 year. And then after, and it was a step back in terms of responsibility, in terms of salary, but I was like, actually it's a creative space and I love it, because I was dealing with fabrics and materials and colours and threads and embroideries and just fashion. It was really a lovely place to work, and they expected you to take your 1 hour lunch and to be finished at 5, whereas corporate, like recruitment, was you had to be in at 7:38, and if you left before 6:37 you were a part-timer. So there was no quality of life. So that enabled me again in my early 20s to be able to go swimming in my lunch breaks and go to the gym every night. So I really did focus on just my mental health well-being through meditation, and my physical, because I've always had a practice of
just having that balance,
exercise. So I worked there for a year, and then the company said, right, they had links in the Far East with Pakistan, Sri Lanka, India, Bangladesh, Philippines, where all the clothes were being manufactured. So we would deal with the offices out in the Far East and get the shipments delivered, and then deliver them into the warehouses for Asda and Ethel Austin's and Primark. You never realise the actual journey of a garment. So what we're wearing, that top, it had a 12-month lifespan. Somebody 12 months ago, before it was on the shelves, had to decide how frilly were the arms going to be, what the colour of the thread was going to be, what the style is going to be. And that had to come a year, because it takes a year for it to come to the shelf. It's not just a sudden process, because you have to book the slots in the factories to be made, you have to order the raw materials. So it was really interesting. So what was happening at the time, companies like Primark were cutting out the middlemen in the UK and going direct to source, so to the factories out in the Far East. To cut costs, and that's why we get our clothes cheaper, and it's very fast. It's like fast food, but fast clothing, fast fashion. And what the company that I worked for, they wanted somebody from the UK office to go to their Sri Lankan office to work there for a year. So they asked me, and obviously because I was young, free, single, no commitments, I was 24 at the time, and by this time my parents are like, you're 24, you need to get married, as an Indian parent. They're like, you need to get married. And I was like, oh my God, I will, but I'll never get an opportunity like this. And it's again, I'll come back, and then we'll see who's out there. So I went to Sri Lanka for a year and worked out there and lived in a 5-star hotel for a year. I lived at the Taj Hotel.
Oh wow.
So
fancy.
It was very fancy. Everything, all expenses paid. Working in the factories and in the buying offices out in Sri Lanka. So I got a chance to learn a different culture, a different language. I think they thought because I was brown that I would mix in better to the Sri Lankan culture. But when I got there, wow, it's so different to India. But it was so enriching in my whole journey's life that, you know, I just really had an amazing introduction to Buddhism. Even like the country, the people, the language, the food, the fashion, and even out there I got myself involved with like beauty schools and started to teach henna out there, and was on the panel of judges for beauty contests. And you know, just life, experiencing life and just going to seek opportunities. I got a chance to travel to Malaysia and Thailand and south of India and Goa. I had a couple of friends come over and meet me in Sri Lanka. I went to go meet them in India. So again, I had an amazing experience before, traveling a lot.
Would you encourage your girls then to travel? Do you feel that it like enriched their mind and everything?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I think sometimes I can't believe the things that I did at a young age, and if I think about my daughters, I'm like, but you know, there is a protectiveness. But yes, I would wholeheartedly encourage and support them to go travel and gain experience elsewhere, whether they want to go, you know, away to study or stay local, but always find there's always opportunities to go and the connections and the people that I've met. That's what really makes life worth living, is the people that you meet in life. So I had this amazing experience, came back to England, and that's when my parents were like, "Are you not getting married?" I was like, "Okay, bring it on. Show me, you know, you want to arrange my marriage, show me the talent." And I remember I came back in the March, and in the April, May, I had about 3 prospects lined up.
Oh, really?
I did. Because like, bring them on, I'll go on these blind dates. And so it was at a wedding that I actually met my husband. So Vivek was born in Warren Point in Northern Ireland. He was over for his cousin's wedding in Birmingham, who was marrying my cousin. So we were at a wedding together, but he wasn't even one of the 3 I just happened to meet him at this wedding. And it was my aunt that kept saying, "Oh, I've got loads of nephews on my husband's side of the family, I'll introduce you." I was like, okay. So we have a mutual aunt in the middle, but we're not related, it's just a mutual aunt. And so we met at this wedding. We exchanged numbers, we spoke on the phone because he was here and I was in England for 5 weeks on the phone, text messages. He came over to England and I picked him up in Coventry. We spent the whole day in London together at a lifestyle exhibition, an Indian lifestyle exhibition, which was amazing. And literally at the end of that day, he was like, "Yep, I want to marry you." And I was like, "Oh my God, this is so scary." And I was like, "Okay, when?" So literally on the day of our first date, we set the wedding for the following year on that same date. I came back and told my mom and she freaked out. Because whilst I was growing up, arranged marriage wasn't a foreign concept to us, but in the sense that it's more like a blind date. This is a potential. Go see if you click. If you don't, that's fine. And I'd always say to my mom, "You can't expect me to make a decision on the first date." And my mom would say, "Well, you can't be going out with somebody for 3 or 4 months and then you say no, because that's like insulting and embarrassing to our family and it's dishonor and blah, blah, blah." Because they were still very traditional. Whereas I was a Western thinking, but you know, I had to live between 2 cultures all my life, and I had to be respectful to the Indian culture, but also I was born and brought up here. So when I came back after my first date with Vivek and told my mom that I like him, I think if you want to speak to his parents now and do the formalities, and my mom freaked out and she's like, "Well, shouldn't you meet him a few more times?" So it was completely the opposite of what would have normally happened, or what I thought would have happened. But we just had this most amazing courtship, because he was here, I was in England, and very traditional, an amazing year of romance, Like, I mean, good old romance.
Did you feel when you met him that he was the one?
Oh,
That feeling?
Yeah. I mean, the other potential 3 that I was due to meet, I still met them after my first chat with Vivek. So I was like,
Right.
I need to be sure.
Yes. Yeah.
So I did meet the others, but I was like, no, there's definitely no. And it's all divine. It's divinely already predetermined. So we were meant to be on each other's journey, and we had an epic roller coaster journey because I got married in 2015. 2005. Moved over to Northern Ireland. Left my job, left my whole life. Moved to Northern Ireland and got a job and acclimatized to life and the culture and the tradition in Northern Ireland.
You would need to.
I was like, even understanding the accent was a little bit, what are they saying? But that was all fine. I worked at Castlecourt Shopping Centre as a commercialisation manager. Worked with the most amazing set of people that we worked together 12 years in the same team. So they were my extended family. Right. And I had an epic corporate journey with, first it was Westfield, then Savills, then CBRE. So different companies took over Castlecourt Shopping Centre. And during that time, we were living life, as a married couple and going through the ups and downs of life and figuring it out. And we had Ria, our first daughter, in 2008 and Seisha in 2012. Right. So 2012, 2 daughters. And again, just dealing with life. And in marriage, nothing's straightforward, nothing's linear. It's up and down, whether it's emotional, physical, mental. There was all of that to deal with. We were just, dealing with life. And Vivek, he was an amazing dentist. So he was a dentist by trade, but he fell out of love with dentistry. His passion was food, so he was a food blogger, and he loved cooking. He was the most domesticated man I've ever met in my life. And I say was because very tragically, and it is still raw, in November 2020, in the midst of COVID, Vivek had a massive heart attack and he passed away. And life just turned upside down because I didn't know how to be without him. I'd never had to be without him. So it was almost like another life had started for me at that point of discovering and learning and dealing with a journey that I never thought I was ever going to have to deal with, especially raising two precious girls. Like, they're so precious to me. But, in those years leading up to Vivek passing away, I mean, he went in the prime of his life, as in he was the happiest and healthiest he'd ever been. Right. He did take a few years out of his career, and I was the working parent. He was the homemaker, and it was amazing. Like, I would come home to the dinner made, the kitchen cleared, the girls' homework's done, the uniforms ready for the next day, lunch is made, and we'd sit down and have dinner. And by 7:30, the kitchen was zapped clean and we had the evening. He was so on the ball with everything. And, I salute how much he did, how he served basically his girls and instilled a real, like, everything that they've learnt. Because I was the working parent, I didn't spend. So, in 2019, just before COVID, I left my corporate job with Castlecourt and wanted to explore my creativity a little bit more with the henna and the makeup and the hair and now the art canvases that I'm doing. So we had the most incredible time during lockdown. But little did we know that year was going to be the last year with Vivek. And I'm so grateful for that year that we had together, because there was no agenda, no coming, going. We just spent quality time together. And it was really strange because that time that we had, everything seemed high definition. In life we have moments that are high definition where they're very memorable. I remember having dinner together and we would have dinner together pretty much every day. But during that year, it just seemed a little bit more precious. During the year, it felt precious.
Right.
I was in a space where, you know, we were at home, Vivek was well. I, you know, started to explore different creative routes, you know, writing poetry, developing my art on canvas, because I could no longer do henna out in public because there was no weddings, there was no festivals, there was nothing going on. So I started to explore. I'll show you actually. This is one I made earlier.
Amazing.
So I have had this sitting inside me for years, but I just needed space too. So I create mandala art, and I've done a number of commissions. But have you ever heard of mandalas?
Yeah.
So mandalas are, it's a Sanskrit word.
Right.
And it's circular in nature.
Okay.
And it's basically like, there's so many things in nature that are circular, whether it's, you know, flowers, cobwebs, you know, fruits. If you look at so many things in nature are mandalas. But creating mandalas, you know, is almost like, it's a spiritual practice. Buddhist monks make mandalas. They actually make it out of coloured rice, and they make the most beautiful, ornate, huge rice mandalas on the floor, painstakingly and so intricate. But what's amazing about this practice that they do is, within a few days, once they've made this mandala, they sweep it all up. Like, they actually just, and symbolically, it's all about, in life, not being attached to anything, to enjoy the process of going through it rather than being consumed by the outcome of it, and not being attached to anything. So even what's happened in life, you know, we think things belong to us. Nothing belongs to us. We do not belong to anybody, and nobody belongs to us. Our children even are not our own children. You know, even in marriage, we must give each other space to grow between us and not be dependent. I don't know whether you come across this poet. He's called Khalil Gibran.
No.
You've never heard of him?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so I'm going to share a story. It's quite, I'll just leave this here for now. I'm going to share this funny story about how I came across probably my first personal development book or philosophical book. And it was the age of 18. I was at university in Canada, and I had a group of Indian friends. And part of this friends group, there was one guy, when I was leaving Canada, he gifted me a book. And this particular guy, he did have a crush on me. He told me on my leaving, as a leaving present, and said, I really like you, but I was leaving. So I was like, okay. But I think I was a bit scared of him. I was 18 and he was probably about 24, 25. Secondly, he was sharing a room with one of our other friends, and our other friends would talk about him and his stories, that he would see spirits and ghosts, and he wrote poetry, and he was just a little bit more inclined to maybe a different way. Yeah. So he gifted me a book called The Prophet. And it was by, you must have a look at this book. It was by, I think, a Lebanese poet. I think he's Lebanese, but yeah, sorry if it's wrong. But he wrote a book about basically the meaning of life, about what children are, what marriage is, you know, just what life is, what's family. But whenever he gave me this book, the cover of this book had the scariest picture of a man, that it frightened me. And already from what I'd heard about him, I was like, what the hell is he giving me? And he'd signed it, and I took it politely, but I left it in a box for 10 years. 10 years. Until one day I must have been going through my books, and I looked at this book and I started to read it, and I was like, wow. The poetry and the meaning of things in that book are incredible. And one of the things that, you know, was about marriage, and it was about teaching that there needs to be space within your marriage, just like the pillars of a temple. The pillars of a temple are separate, to hold up a structure that is so heavy. But if these pillars were together, they wouldn't hold up something so strong. That there must be wind between the pillars that must dance. It's very poetically written. It talks about eat not from the same loaf, but feed each other from your own individual loaves of bread. It's very, very symbolic that in marriage, you know, don't be so consumed with having one thing or sharing one plate. You have to have your own plate. You have to have your own journey. But if I've got my bread and you've got your bread, I will feed you with my bread. You feed me with your bread. Because if one partner goes, like, you've still got sustenance. You've still got your own resources to deal with the rest of life. So there was so much in that book. Even our children, there's a whole passage about children not being ours.
Like property.
The children are not, they are in our keeping for us to, you know, and we're in a privileged position to grow these children so that they can be free to be themselves. And we sometimes forget as parents because we want to protect them and we want them to do certain things, and you have to just kind of wake yourself up to say, you know what, they don't belong to us.
Did you ever struggle with that, you know, the protectiveness, or have you been very...
No, I think I don't know whether it's a struggle. I would call it more as a challenge.
A challenge, yeah.
Because innately as parents we want to protect our children. So there's certain, you know, boundaries that we put in, curfews that we put in. Don't do this, you can't go here. I had many boundaries put on me. And you know, we're doing the same to our children, but every generation is getting more lenient, and I think these social gadgets, these devices are not healthy for the children. But we're living in an era where we have to deal with these challenges. But I think if we can have some kind of spiritual awareness to teach our children that there are alternative ways of dealing with life, that puts them ahead of the game. So Vivek would have been very spiritual. I mean, during COVID, so just going back, after having this most amazing year, in November 2020, he passed away of a heart attack, and life just flipped. Life just flipped, and a whole new journey started. And that journey is one of realization, one of healing, immense healing, which is an ongoing process, but one of, you know, learning to let go, learning to fully accept, learning to honor the present moment, learning to be grateful. I'm so grateful for the support of the family that I've got here, you know, to help me with the children. Vivek's parents, his sisters, my parents and my brothers are over in England, my extended family, and I can't forget the family that are now friends. You know, the friends that have supported me. And there's been a huge journey of learning to heal, learning the process of grief. So Andrew Huberman, do you ever listen to him? He's another podcaster, amazing, and he bridges the science between spirituality and science as well. So he talks about grief in terms of space, time and proximity and closeness. And he talks about anybody in our circle that is close to us, the level and profoundness of grief is going to be deeper naturally. So if somebody's close to us in time, like if I text Vivek, I would expect to text back within half an hour, that I can see him every single day. And on a scale, if that's the case, then if they go away, your reality is now different to what the chemicals are telling you inside your body. So when they say time's a healer, that whole healing time is about, it's almost like weaning the chemicals out of your body, because I'm not getting a hit that I need from Vivek being there, protecting me physically, financially, emotionally, you know, just in every which way. So it's about learning and learning to adjust to a new reality.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I had to put out the bins, I was just devastated.
Yeah,
Like,
even those wee simple things.
the simplest things. I never knew when a light bulb was out in the house.
Right.
I just thought, God, these are long life. Because before I realised, he would have had it changed.
Yeah.
You know, any DIY in the house, but not only DIY, domestic. Like, he was so domestically inclined that, you know, a huge help. And you know, now I look back with absolute gratitude and just can't thank him enough for doing what he did for his girls. And that, you know, and very early on, actually, about 2-3 days after Vivette passed away, Ria was sobbing into her pillow, crying, and I sat with her and I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, "I'm scared, Mummy," as we were all, because it's the most frightening thing I've ever had to deal with in my life. She says, "Mummy, I'm really scared." And I said, "What are you scared of?" She goes, "Mummy, I'm really scared that we're going to have a dull life now that Papa's gone." And Vivek was so animated. He was so engaged. He took the girls out on heritage visit sites, to food shows, to restaurants. He would take his girls out on dates on daddy-daughter days. He would just be so engaging. You know, even like the community would know where Vivek was. His two little sidekicks were with him all the time.
Yeah.
So, you know, and she says, "Mummy, I'm just scared that we're going to have a dull life." And again, like you see in the films, when the dad passes away, you've got, you know, the mum falls apart, there's no money, everything's dull, you're grey, nothing. And it was a really harsh realisation. But I remember just holding Ria's hand and promising her, I said, "I promise you that we're not going to have a dull life." I said, "We're going to honour everything that your dad stood for." And he really lived life. He's travelled the world. He'd get up first thing in the morning. He was a doer. He was the most amazing organiser, and he got things done. I says, "I promise we will let us just deal and heal with what we have to deal with, but I says, I promise you I will be strong to do what I can to have an exciting life, and you know, in his honour, and to carry on his legacy." So, and that's what, you know, I'm trying to do with the girls now. So I think sometimes it's fun being three of us in the house. It was an absolutely hugely different dynamic, you know. Even making food, it's no longer for 4 people at the dinner table. That was so painful. That first Christmas, 3 weeks after he passed away. I mean, this is how organised Vivek was. He passed away on the 30th of November. He had our Christmas presents all wrapped up under the tree. That's how on it he was.
Like such an incredible, like, human and father and husband.
Yeah, wow. It was just very caring. It was a very caring soul. So imagine how we felt opening his presents under the Christmas tree, that he was going to be there with us to open. So yeah, you know, it's like going through the pain. The only option is to go through it. You can't avoid it. I can't dodge it. I have to go through it. And that's it in life. You know, on a Richter scale of pain in your life, whether it's losing parents, losing a job, going bankrupt, you know, all of that. On a Richter scale, they say losing your partner in the prime of your life is the most painful thing you can ever have to deal with. And I just can't believe that I have to deal with it. But, you know, because of, my mum's always said, the God that gives you the hand is the God that's going to look after you. So it's leaving my whole life in his divine hands, and having faith that we will be okay. We'll be okay. Yeah. We just have to just work through everything. And sorry.
No, I wish I had tissues.
I know I didn't.
My tissues.
That's okay. Don't worry. It's just working through and honouring and being present with each emotion that we're feeling, including the girls. You know, we have our moments, and sometimes I have my moments, they console me, and sometimes they have their moments. But each milestone that we get to, like yesterday, Seisha received her high school result, and I was so proud and happy. Privately, I had a moment where I did cry, and I talked to Vivek and said, I wish you were here to be proud with me, to live through this. But he's not, but energetically is. And you know, he basically sorted out everything so that we would be okay after, if ever anything was to happen. So I'm very grateful that, you know, he did that for his girls, and that, you know, now I have to just like make him proud and make myself proud and make the girls proud of doing the best that I can with them as a single parent, with obviously the support of family. But you know, the day-to-day grind, you're doing it, and nobody can walk your journey, and you will be misjudged and misunderstood, but it's part of the journey, and I just have to be resilient to that. But I think the most important thing is to have fun on the way.
Yeah, definitely.
So
like you said, you want to carry on his legacy, you know, for your girls and for him. And
and they are both incredible girls, incredibly
they're so lovely,
academically bright.
Yeah.
So I am very fortunate that I don't need to help them to study, and you know, academics was hugely important to me because of my parents. And to Vivek as well. He was like, we used to call him Google, because he was so
interesting.
He was just interested in everything. I mean, we have the hugest library. His collection of books was incredible. He was always watching documentaries, always watching nature programs, always interested in, like, you know, whether it's stocks, shares, cryptocurrency, financial markets, geography, you know, Michael Palin, whatever. He was just hugely interested in a lot of things. And you know, and when he passed away, I was like, I need to now step up and learn about how to deal with finances. Where are my pensions? What am I going to do? How am I going to be okay with managing everything going forward? Because he might have left his stuff, but it's now, how am I going to manage it? So I had to step up, in the huge learning curve that I had, you know, whether it was looking at investments, you know, even buying a house. We bought a house last year. I'm learning about digital money, cryptocurrencies, learning how money works, you know, just being wise with decisions, you know, whilst still working full time, whilst being a mummy, whilst dealing with, but I think, you know, us human beings are incredible, because when we have to step up. There's no choice. I would never have wanted to have been put into this position. But when you are, there's no choice. So our superpower is how we're going to deal with it.
And your upbringing as well, you know, your spirituality and your background, you know, have you found that has been like a real strength as well, you know, for you to get through these hard times, because you have so much?
I think immensely. I can't even, whilst I grew up with the spiritual side of things, what I'm learning now, like there's so many TED Talks and audio books and podcasts to scientifically prove that, you know, what meditation does, what exercise does, what fasting does, for example, to your body. And these are rituals and practices that have been practiced for thousands of years in the East. So I do feel very blessed to have been born in a culture where you know, these practices have been done. And you know, as a child I've been introduced to them, and now I'm learning about the science of it, and thinking, oh yeah, my mom was right, oh yeah, you know, that did work. You know,
because it's coming more mainstream now, you know, the Eastern
and you know, we call it alternative therapies, but once upon a time they were the mainstream therapies.
Yeah.
You know, modern medicine only came about 150, 200 years ago.
Wow.
You know, so
Yeah.
whereas, you know, the Eastern practices were there. But, you know, there's a place for everything. Modern medicine is, you know, hugely, has a place of its own, you know, medicines. But there's also, if you can have a parallel practice, which I think is proactive, you know, it's proactively taking a stance on things, then it puts us in a better stead. So I've got this analogy of a wall, and I have to share this analogy of a wall. So I see our life as a wall.
Okay.
And each year of our life is a layer of the wall that's being built. So a wall has a foundation, which is underneath the ground. That foundation was built when you were in your mum's tummy, right? So you didn't have control over how your bricks were being put down. Your mum did. How she lived, you know, what she did. Actually, it was how your grandma lived, because the eggs that you came from with your mum were built in your grandma's womb. That's how far back.
Oh.
So how your grandma was and how your mum was when you haven't even been born were the foundational layers. And then when you were born, the first year is one layer of brick, and next. And each action, each thing that we do, the care, you know, the medicine, the food, the milk, you know, all of these are little layers and bricks that we're putting down in this wall. So when we get to 9, 10, we have a bit more autonomy over what we're doing. We might sneak some sweets, but it's okay. As long as we're putting the bricks down well, it's okay. And our wall's not very big, so it's not going to be, you know, faltering. But as we get older, you know, we get into our teenage years, maybe early when we get into uni, we maybe have a bit more money and we can make decisions, and we might have the takeaways and, you know, drink and smoke and take weed or experiment with drugs or whatever. And those bricks, and then slightly wobbly. They're not, you know, they're not the right decision, but you just dabble, you experiment, and you're putting these bricks down. But it's okay, because the wall's only that big. It's not going to falter, but you've put these bricks down. Now, if you continue to put these bricks down wobbly every single year, what's going to happen to that wall?
It's going to fall.
It's going to start to get shaky, right? Because you're not putting your bricks down right. I say this to my girls, put your bricks down right.
Ooh.
So, as this wall's getting higher, because we might, you know, have had a bit too many takeaways, or we've been drinking a lot in our 20s, or we've started smoking, or whatever, it's not bad. The odd break's fine. If you continue, it's the power of the compound, that one small step isn't going to make a difference, but over time it's going to have a compound effect, good or bad.
Yeah, right.
So as this wall's getting higher, you might be in your 30s and you might get a bit of a health shock. You might have high cholesterol or blood pressure or something and you think, oh shit, better start. It's never too late. Start eating right, you know, quit on the takeaways, you know, just have a better living, healthier living. So you start putting these bricks down right. So the more bricks that we can put down right, the better and stronger our wall's going to be. And it's only going to get higher. So if we put dodgy bricks down here, and our wall's high, and we have good living up here, it matters how many dodgy bricks we put down here, because the wall's getting higher, and we want this wall to be as sturdy as possible.
Just see
the analogy. So we want, and then the thing is, we don't want to be scared by our health, but there's certain things that we don't have control over, you know, and we all know people and friends and family that have had to deal with things that they've had a good living, and, you know, they might have had an accident, or they've been knocked down, or, you know, they've broken a leg or something. But if you've got a strong enough immunity and things that you did well to build a foundation, then you have a chance of recovering from it better.
Yeah, right.
And that this is what is powerful in this analogy, is that we sometimes don't realize until it's too late.
Yeah.
But if we can if there's anybody that's young enough to grasp this concept, you know, just put your bricks down right.
Put your bricks down right.
Put your bricks down right. And that just basically means conscious decisions in the bricks that you're putting down in the wall of your life. Whether it's what you eat, what you drink, what you consume, what you think, what you read, what you listen to, you know, have good company around you. So I don't know, and I've known innately. I didn't know I knew this.
Was that just an analogy that you?
Yeah, that's my analogy.
Right,
I've never. I just kind of came up with that.
Wow.
But because I think I was trying. I think I tried to explain it to somebody, and I was trying to. Because I didn't know how it was going to serve me when I was younger. But now that I'm older, I can look back and connect the dots.
Yeah.
And that's why I think I relate to mandalas so much, because whenever you start a mandala, see life like a mandala, and we've got different layers of this mandala. But, you know, everything has its place. The opposites in our life has a place in the whole structure of our life. So the good, the bad, the ugly, it all has a place. And it's only when we zoom out of our life and our mandala can we actually connect the dots and think, oh, okay, I see what happened there. I didn't know it at the time, but I know it now, and I believe it. So
I love what you talked about in the house, you know, with the cards.
Oh yeah.
Can you explain that again, if you remember what it was you said?
Yeah. So I'm working on a trilogy, an art piece with 3 artworks, and the central piece is something very similar to this. And in the middle of it, I've got a deck of cards, but the 4 cards in the middle here is 4 aces. So you've got your 4 aces fanned out in the middle. It's work in progress, but I'll share the picture after, and you can maybe share it with your readers. But it's basically any artwork in your life or in your home is to evoke an emotion. So we buy artwork because it emotionally connects to us. So this particular artwork that I'm working on, you know, everything in life is energy. So the energy that I've put into making these is the energy that I'm going to feel when I look at it. And that's the same whenever I'm doing a commissioned piece. If somebody wants me to do a piece, like I've done pieces for health, or, you know, somebody wanted a family tree in the middle. And so when I'm creating it, you know, I've usually got my candles burning and the incense burning, and, you know, I've got meditation music on. I'm putting in the energy of creating that with the intention that it's supposed to bring out. When that person looks at it. So, you know, these can be spiritual, they can be religious, but they're not exclusively religious. So, you know, you could have a cross in the middle, or Ekumgar, which is one eternal God in the Sikh religion, or you could have Om symbol in the Hindu religion, the cosmic sound of the universe. So, so, you know, it depends what you want, but a focal point. So this particular focal point in my artwork that I'm doing is 4 aces. And the analogy behind that is that in life, we're going to, my kids hate it because I'm constantly lecturing and I'm always starting sentences, in life, kids. And the girls are like, no, not another lecture. So in life, we're going to be dealt a deck, a hand of cards. But it's knowing that hand, whatever we're dealt with at that time, we don't have control of the hand that we're dealt with. We only have control with how we're going to play with that hand. So we play with that hand the best that we can with the resources that we've got and the knowledge that we've got. And even if they're good, we do it humbly. And when it's not so good, it's knowing that everything is temporary in this life. There's nothing permanent in this life other than death and birth and the cycle of life and death. There's nothing else more permanent than that. Everything else in life is temporary. Our parents are temporary. This moment is temporary. Our relationships are temporary. Our happiness is temporary, but also our sadness is temporary as well. So it's just, if we understand that concept, it's then honouring that we might have a bad deck of cards at hand at that time, but our cards are constantly being changed. But whatever cards we're dealt with at that time, play with those cards as if you've got the 4 aces. So that's just homing into the artwork that I've got, that we are going to have bad hands in life, and we're all going to have them, but it's how we play with that card, with those hands. So that's the middle one, and then the 2 side pieces is one of King of Hearts and the other one Queen of Hearts. So it's in the making, and I can't wait for it to unfold. But I find them really special to talk about, and also just for, I think it's just one of those things that you can keep looking at it and see different things and just appreciate different things from it. But I never know what something's going to turn out like. It's a very organic, spiritual, therapeutic process to create one of these.
And is that your goal then? Is that what you're wanting to do next? Is this your journey?
I think so. My journey, I would love, like, you know, vision boards and visualization. I do want to help people. I think with my own journey and knowing what art has done for me. So I'm currently doing a diploma in art therapy and mindfulness. So I've got that under my belt. But also then to do mandala workshops. So actually go out there and just tell my story, because we're all just a series of stories. We're in this big fat book, and we've got different chapters in this book. This is my chapter right now, and it's about sharing my story, demonstrating how art and henna has been a huge contributing positive factor in my own mental health well-being. And doing a workshop of creating a mandala where we can give ourselves time and space to ground and just have music on and have a relaxing experience, creating a mandala that you can then display in the house with the intention that you've had whilst making it. So that's where I want to go. I've done a couple already, as well as doing the commissioned artwork. So I want to just develop my signature style. I mean, this is my signature style, but I think I can see a bigger vision with it. But it's, again, finding the space and time whilst running a very busy home with kids, and
you're very inspiring, you know. Even just meeting you today, this is the first time I've met you, and just
thank you.
I know I'm going to come away from this like,
well, I'm sure we're going to be friends. We're going to be friends.
We really are.
Going forward, and we'll have our cooking sessions.
I know.
Share more food.
What did we eat this morning? Not this morning, this afternoon. It was.
I made Sarah a brunch, and anyone that comes to my house, I love sharing my food, culture, smells. I don't know if you can smell the incense and just. So we had bronte, which is a brunch for us. It's almost like potato bread, like the Irish potato bread, but this is Indian. So we can have a potato paratha, but today we had like rice cauliflower. So it was cauliflower with spices, coriander, garam masala, salt, pepper, chilies, a little bit of chilies. I didn't make it too chilly because we had a spiced chutney on the side. And then it's almost like a flat bread that you make on a tawa, which is a frying pan almost, and then you add butter and then dip it in plain yogurt, Greek yogurt.
It was so lovely, and it was so filling as well.
So you just and I like cooking them hot off the press, literally. Rather than sitting and eating with you, the way that Indian mummies would serve is everybody sits at the table and then they're coming hot off the press, because just to eat them freshly off the frying pan with the butter melted on it, there's just a different taste.
And you don't get that anymore, you know. You go to people's homes, but no one really has that. Like, I think it
is an Indian thing to be hospitable. But I just think food is hugely connecting. And we're all creatures of connection. We just, you know, we want to belong, we want to connect, and what better way to connect with than food and drink.
I know, I love tea.
I know, I think tea is very ritualistic.
Yeah, definitely is. And this is so, I've never had Indian tea, but it's just, you're going to have to show me how to make that too.
And, you know, I'll get you some spices so you can learn how to, I'll teach you how to make it.
Yeah, definitely. So. I feel so honoured and like blessed that we connected. I really do, because
no, absolutely, I feel the same. And thank you, Kira, for introducing us.
Thank you. honestly, because you know what you've spoke to me about today, it was like divine timing. Like there's so much that I took from that, because I myself lately have found myself in that kind of anxious mode, you know, and like hearing everything that you said was very like, you have to go through that, you know, the river was that you were talking about, you know, you have to go through it.
Flow. It's like if imagine a fish and there's a water flow downstream, and you've got a fish and it's struggling to swim upstream. Imagine the resistance that fish is going to feel and experience from trying to swim uphill. Whereas if it just let go and just swam down as life is flowing, that resistance, and when we have resistance to our reality or what's happening, it causes pain. And the thing is, we're all human and we feel that resistance, and it is painful, whether it's a confrontation with a loved one, whether it's being insulted by something, whether it's, you know, a health challenge. It's resistance that's causing the pain.
Totally.
So it's just leaning into that resistance and just being accepting of it, but also not being hopeless. It's knowing that, right, what is being hopeful and having faith that what can I do, what's in my power, because not everything is in our power, and that's why we just have to release power and let it be.
That's surrender, isn't it?
I mean, even letting it go. Just recently, I was saying, so my hair was really long. Like, your hair's beautiful long. My hair was like really down to my hip, and just a few weeks ago, I just cut it because it was just time to let go. It was just time for you need to, for new things to come in your life, you need to let go of old things. But it's honoring the path and the journey. And letting go of the outcome. Letting go of the attachment to the outcome, which is what the Bhagavad Gita in the Hindu scripture says. So.
Well, it's 1 hour and 6 minutes, but I could totally talk for another hour.
I know, we'll have round 2. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Honestly, I know your story is so powerful, and it's going to really, anyone that's going through something similar will really take something from it. I'll take a lot from it.
I hope so. And reach out on Instagram, say hello. I'd love to connect with you, and we'll carry on our friendship.
Yeah, definitely.
Offline.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.